Welcome back to the weekly news roundup and the Dystopian edition. All right, so the kitty's here to announce the coming dystopia. And if you are looking to switch your mobile phone companies, look at Mint Mobile. They use T-Mobile's towers, and I actually got a great deal on mine where I'm spending only a tiny fraction of what I used to for the same degree of service. So I'm very happy with Mint Mobile. tlm.li/mm. Let's dive on into the dystopian news.St and foremost, we have to phrase all this like this, and I was totally surprised that this was an Ars Technica article. I was looking for the catch because Ars Technica is trying to be fearmonger number one here. And so basically, though, they couldn't deny this little piece of science. So the science indicates now that recovered COVID-19 patients test positive but are not infectious. In other words, if you've already had it and you've recovered, you can't pass it on, even though you might test positive for it. I want you to keep this in mind as we proceed down dystopia. And this was some pretty decent science looking at what they were doing. This is from Korea Centers for Disease Control. They were calling these cases re-positives. And the theory was that a second wave is going to come around on reinfections, and completely unfounded. Really no evidence of that anywhere. But keeping that in mind as we proceed through, rules for thee and not for me. Twitter will not add the misleading label to, quote, bad science. I am so sick of these morons over at these journalists, supposed journalists at these organizations having no idea what science even is. There's no such thing as bad science unless you're going to tell me exactly what the article is and what's bad about it. Now, I did read some bad science. In other words, the way the experiment was conducted and the interpretations and how the things were conducted did not necessarily follow all of the way. That might be considered bad science. But bad science is not whatever you seem to disagree with because Orange Man Bad's advisor said it. But Twitter is prioritizing content with clearer harm. But basically, if you're a high-level politician, you're going to be fairly immune to what's going to go on over here. Now, what this is over here is dealing with this hydroxychloroquine. So Twitter's misinformation policy doesn't cover a widely shared article claiming about evidence that anti-malaria drug hydroxychloroquine has a, quote, 90% chance of helping COVID-19 patients. No treatment, including hydroxychloroquine, has been proven effective. I said, you know what? That's really interesting. Let's see where that actually comes from. Oh, it's from Harvard. Harvard actually comes down, and I looked into this because it was interesting. So, and guys, for you guys that aren't familiar with my channel, I have a PhD in molecular toxicology. I know how to read the science. Are chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin safe and effective for treating COVID-19? Early reports from China and France suggested patients with it improved more quickly given chloroquine. And some doctors were using a combination with azithromycin as positive effects. And then it says here, primarily used as malaria. Both drugs are inexpensive and readily available. And it says here, it's been shown to kill the virus in laboratory dish. That is what we call in vitro. The drugs appear to work through two mechanisms. First, make it harder for the virus to attach itself to a cell, then inhibiting. Azithromycin is never used for viral infections. However, this antibiotic does have some anti-inflammatory actions, and inflammation does seem to be a big deal because COVID seems to cause what is called a cytokine storm. And then it says, however, most recent human studies suggest no benefit and a possible higher risk of death due to lethal heart arrhythmias. So what do you notice here? There's no reference. This is an opinion article from Harvard. This is an opinion article. There's no references. There's no sources. There's no anything. So I went over to the medical databases and I dug into it. And I found no less than 8 studies which all indicate that this statement that Harvard just made is actually false. Lots of studies. Now, a big one just came out, and it was published in, I think it was the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science. And they're like, chloroquine showed a higher death. That article, I read it. is bad science. Here's why. First, their control group is 5 times higher than their test group. They literally had 17,000 people in their test group and 80,000 people in their control group that received no drugs. And then when they did their age breakdown, the people who received the drugs all had a statistically higher age range than the control group did. Control group had a statistical age range of around 53, which all previous data suggests is not a lethal range to have the illness. But it was closer to the 60 range. Everybody who actually received the treatments were actually in the over 60 range. That's bad science. So this one article now is being toted out to say, this disease kills you. No. We need a better study that actually randomizes the people better and has more balanced control groups. But basically, if you disagree with the narrative that Twitter wants to push, you're going to get labeled as incorrect. So rules for me and not for thee, because even though this individual advisor happens to say things that are counter to this, we're not going to battle on that. All right, enough of the policy and stuff. Any college students out there that are failing the AP test? Well, it turns out that the college board exam can't handle how iPhones take photos. If you've ever taken a photo with an iPhone, plugged it directly in the computer and dumped it, you know that iPhones take pictures upside down. So one of the ways that you can submit your answers on the AP exam is to take a picture of your answers and then upload them. When you take the pictures and upload them, everything appears upside down and the AP exam fails you. Oh boy. So yeah, I guess if you're using an iPhone, don't use that option. There actually is an option that allows you to go in and I think either type or handwrite, do something different. There is something that allows you to do something different. If you're on an iPhone, use that if you have to take the AP test online, apparently. So in our crazy world, we can't even run our technology right to continue our education. So we're just going to have a whole society of people that are going, nah, I don't know nothing because school no happened for me, you know. And so whatever, that happens to be the case. All right. No, Jesus, how many pop-ups do I need? All right. So CNBC, 3 states will use Apple and Google contact tracing technology for virus tracking apps. So, of course, just this week, Apple rolled out an update that had all of that contact tracing embedded in the software. A friend of mine installed it. He said it is turned off by default, but the update turned on your Bluetooth. So what happens is the state has to build or commission to build the single health app, and they're only approving the API for a single app within a single state. And so they're looking at Alabama, North Dakota, and South Dakota are the first states to commit to publicly using Apple and Google's contact tracing technology in statewide apps meant to slow the spread of the virus. Okay, so what we have here is that Apple and Google technology will be used in the Care 19 app and the South Carolina SC Safer Together app. Safer Together app. I thought we were supposed to be socially distancing. How can we safer together when we're socially distancing, people? I don't get it. I don't understand. This is what happens when governments take over. And so they're going out and doing this. So this group comes out, Jumbo Privacy reviews North Dakota's contact tracing app. Now, as we dive into this, there was a discrepancy here that I did not understand. The Google and the Apple API forbids the app from using location data. This app is using location data. But I was able to uncover that the app from North Dakota has gone through several iterations. My guess is he's reviewing a previous version, not the current version that may be using the app itself. Okay, but I don't know. So keep that in the back of your head that when we look at the dangers of using this app in North Dakota, the Care 19 Act in North Dakota, this might not be the one that they're using presently. This might be an older version, but the company here, Jumbo Privacy, did not tell us the version they're using, so we don't know. But anyway, what they did is they looked at the Care 19 app and they looked at a variety of different things. They basically said here, we're not analyzing anything about the health aspects because that's not what we know. They said we know it. Number one, app shares user location data with Foursquare. I checked into my Corona hotel, you know. So in that case, the location data, it went up to Proud Crowd LLC, and Proud Crowd says the location is private to you and stored securely on Proud Cloud LLC servers. It will not be shared with anyone, including government entities or third parties, unless you consent or Proud Crowd is compelled under federal regulations. Interesting. So the user location data is also shared with Foursquare. They provide advertisers with tools to reach audiences who have been at specific location. Foursquare claims they're tracking 25 million devices opted in always on. Users can ask Foursquare to stop selling their personal information by using a form that goes to Foursquare's website. Number two, the app isn't really anonymous. The privacy policy indicates that your data is identified by an anonymous code. We were able to validate the app indeed uses some anonymous code in the format US848, basically a code digit. However, our researchers found the anonymous code was transmitted to Foursquare along with the phone's advertising identifier and Bug Fender along with the phone's name, probably including your first name. Very interesting. Sharing what is supposed to be an anonymous code along with an advertising identifier is a serious risk of privacy. They recommend not using it until such effects. Now, I will say again, we will reiterate this again, that this app here might be an older version because allegedly Google and Apple's API is not supposed to be allowed to be used with an app that collects location data, and it does appear that this app is collecting location data. So either Apple and Google are not quite as stringent as they're saying they are, it's not as truthful as they're saying they are, or maybe it's just a scenario where Apple and Google hasn't caught on yet that this is actually happening. I don't know. You let me know what you think. But that's kind of the case going on here. COVID-19 contact tracing app hits Apple devices. I think we've already mentioned this. So if you force the updates, which you kind of need to do because if there's some major security updates you also need to patch. Hey, isn't it funny? All these security patches. Hey guys, go ahead and patch the phone or you're going to get hacked. We're just going to add this COVID-19 stuff into the core of your phone. Does anybody questioning yet why we need to permanently embed tracking for something in our phone that's supposed to be completely disabled when the quote crisis is gone? Has anybody thought about that yet? Interesting. But if you do update your device, apparently it is disabled by default, but it does turn your Bluetooth on. Go figure. Because Apple always wants your Bluetooth on. All right, facial recognition firms pitch COVID-19 immunity passports for America and Britain. So this is a startup company over in California, of course. And they say, hey, we are going to have a facial recognition database that is tied into a national health database where you can be deemed to be immune from the virus because you've already have it and had antibodies, or hey, when we get a vaccine, you can be vaccinated against it. And then you can carry your facial ID card with you. You scan your facial ID card, they verify who you are in the database, and your card pings and says, indeed, this guy's immune to the virus and / can't get it. Therefore, hey, look at this. Now we have yet another company. Guys, I do not like any of these companies that is basically forced to use a company to accomplish something like travel or whatever else. I think that at the point in time I'm compelled to use an individual application from an individual company, that company needs to immediately be considered a public entity. That's an interesting thought, but it's definitely one worth thinking about. Let me know your thoughts on these articles and the other ones in the comments down below.